of Universal Accounting Center, and this is a podcast dedicated to individuals who are owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses committed to offering quality accounting services and working on their business. We here address a variety of topics with the experts. We're covering each week a variety of things that I think everyone needs to be aware of as they're running their company, ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, client onboarding, tech stack, staff training, mental health, and so many more things. Each and every week, I bring on the show experts to actually share their insights as it relates to their business and what they suggest we consider as we're running ours. So today we're going to actually have on the show Rebecca Howell. She is a seasoned entrepreneur. She's gracefully exited from a thriving 20-year bookkeeping and accounting business to dedicate her time to empowering fellow business owners. She's passionate about guiding entrepreneurs and small business owners towards realizing their goals and purpose. She specializes in crafting personalized exit strategies, whether clients aim to sell their businesses internally or externally. Her expertise ensures meticulous preparation and a tailored approach to meet their unique needs. So, Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. So obviously having a successful bookkeeping business is something we need to discuss. So I want to start with a little bit of backstory. Give us an idea of what brought you to the accounting profession. How did you get just into accounting in general?
Yeah. Well, even as a young child, was very good with math and numbers. It came very natural to me. And I think probably around the age of 8 or so, I thought, oh, I want to be an accountant.
Good.
Like, it was a big job. It was a big title, I thought. So in my high school, my last couple years of high school, I started taking some accounting classes, transferred over to the community college, and was like, who would want to do this? Like, why would we want to be dedicated to this? So I kind of lost the passion, I think. And also during that period of time, my mother had health issues. So I had to step back from college and did some odds and end jobs, just kind of growing up. And in 2000, right before I turned 25, I thought, okay, it's time to get back into the professional world. And so I started putting some feelers out there. The first job I landed and interviewed and landed was an accounting firm. And I'm like, okay, God, got the message. This is where I'm supposed to be. Fell in love with bookkeeping. Started off as a administrative assistant, just really, that was my job when I first started. And they figured out I was way better at bookkeeping than I was at answering the phones. So fell in love with small businesses, small business owners, entrepreneurship, and just the process of bookkeeping and how important it was to the business owners. And I did some freelance work after working there for about 3 years.
Interesting.
And yeah, I did some freelance work, just helping out a friend, really it was. He became a really good business mentor to me. And he discovered that you're really good at this job. You're really good at bookkeeping. You're really good at accounting, good at business, finances and ownership and things of that nature. So he kind of pushed me to start my own business. So of course, October of 2003 is when I started it. And 11 months later, I was at full capacity.
Oh my heavens.
It was just the right time. I was blessed. I found the right time and started looking for contractors, never really landed that good staff member. So I stayed a solopreneur up until 2019.
Oh my heavens.
So yeah, so
that's
from 2003 to 2019. And back then, I was a traveling bookkeeper. So I went to the client's locations, and 2013, technology kind of helped us. I also got my enrolled agent's license and started doing some tax preparation. And it just made sense to become a remote bookkeeper. And it naturally just kind of worked into that.
So I want to go back to the starting of the bookkeeping business. Clearly, you're an assistant, you're doing the work, you're enjoying working with the clients. I presume that you're taking on a few on the side, but the point is there's a difference being an entrepreneur, going out and starting your own business, taking that leap. So on a personal note, what was it that within you said, I can do this, I'm willing to take the risk, I'm going to go out on my own, walk away from the W-2 opportunity? What was that motivator, that catalyst?
I think a lot of it had to do with how I grew up. I was an only child. I was very independent. I think at some point in time, I knew I wasn't going to work for someone. So I had that drive in me to really know that I could master this. And I think just with the pushing of it, just knowing that I was good at something. And I was good talking to people. Wasn't necessarily a hard salesman. I just understood people. And a lot of my clients became friends, not necessarily, we would go out and have dinner together, but it wasn't just like I knew about their family, I knew about their kids, I knew, their vacations. I mean, business owners' lives, you're doing their bookkeeping, you know how they spend their money, you know what they like. So I just leaned in on a lot of that and just knew that you promise what you're gonna you say what you're gonna do, and you promise it, and you do better than you promised. So it was
Well,
just easy for me to, I guess, do.
yeah. Well, one of the things that you're emphasizing here, or at least bringing to light, is the fact that this is a people business. So many times I think this is considered to be a numbers business, something that you can kind of do in the shadows and just take care
Yeah.
of the numbers and be done. But you're really pointing out that you get to know your clients, you get to actually become familiar with them at various levels. And at the end of the day, it's a very personable experience. So that's important. But going back to 2003, you said very quickly in 11 months, you were able to become fully occupied and at full capacity. I want to know, do you recall what it was that perhaps enabled you to get the clients so quickly? Some people do struggle with marketing and sales. Clearly, that was something that you weren't experiencing as you were growing so quickly. Do you have a recollection as to what it was that was enabling you to have that catalyst?
I do. Back then, QuickBooks Online it was fairly new,
Hmm.
and they leaned heavily on their provisors to get the word out.
Yeah,
So they were really helpful in, I think 75% of my business that first year came from Intuit's Provisor program.
perfect.
Now, since they've brought their bookkeeping in-house, that is not as much of a viable option. We're not getting as many
Hmm.
referrals off of them lately. So
Hmm.
back then, that's what it was. And I can guarantee that that's what it is. And it continued to be that for several years.
Yeah. Now, for a number of years, you indicated that you were a solopreneur doing it all in house on
Hmm.
your own.
Hmm.
What was the thing that caused you to say, okay, years later, I'm going to hire my first employee? Why take that next step? Why was it that it was you wanted to now grow a business rather than just have a job?
I always knew that at some point in time, I wanted it to be a sellable business. I knew that it was a commodity that I had had for so long. And a lot of my clients, like going back to the relationship, a lot of my clients stayed with me that 18, 19, 20 years. So when I sold the business, I still had some of my original clients.
That's
And again,
awesome.
it's about people. It's about relationships. It's not just about the numbers. And I knew that I wanted to help other people get into this industry. Some people are great W-2 jobs and they don't want to jump into that entrepreneurial lead role. And so being able to provide an opportunity for other people to get into this business, love the business, grow it, and eventually sell it. I did end up selling it sooner than I wanted to, but there was terms around why I did that. So
Yeah. Well, we'll dive into that
yeah.
in a moment. But one of the things I wanted to then address is obviously running a business with employees and getting that number of clients is different than that solopreneur experience. What were some of the things that you did to ensure that with that growth, you maintained the quality of the services and at the same time got the clients you needed to sustain the growth that you needed to cover the costs?
Yeah, and the growth was it was astronomical. I mean, it was a roller coaster. Um, we grew quite rapidly. I mean, from 2019, I think my business was about maybe 36, 40 clients, somewhere right around there at
Uh-huh.
105,000. And in 2022, we were over 200 clients and over $425,000 of revenue. We grew rapidly quick. So the client wasn't the problem. Getting those. It was empowering the team to know what my expectations were with the clients,
Hmm.
but also just empower them to be the main point of contact with the clients.
Yeah.
I was still there, but allowing them to say, okay, this client is transitioning to you. You are their main point of contact. These are the clients that you have to serve. And also just to be clear with what my expectations were, but understood that one of the exercises I did was I put them in through the 4 quadrants of like, what did you like? What did you don't like? Things like that, so that I could hone in on their skills and also assign the right clients to them. because there's, you have a variety of clients that you have, but you also want to know who they are. What did they like? Maybe if they'd had bookkeeping experience, what kind of clients did they serve before? And could you kind of connect those dots and make sure that they enjoyed their job as well,
Yeah.
and that the clients were being taken care of?
You've already brought up one of the things that's very important as many people grow their businesses is whether or not the staff is going to be client facing, whether or not they're going to interact with the clients.
Mhm.
And some of them assume that in growing the business that the only reason I'm getting the clients is because of me. It's all about me. I'm the thing that's so great and wonderful. And you're experiencing more or less that transition of individuals other than you working with the clients, being client facing. What was that transition like? Was it something that was easy and intentional, or was it something that you painstakingly did? Tell us about that.
It was intentional. It certainly was intentional, but it was challenging. We went through I mean, as most accounting businesses kind of go through, or even businesses in general, we had a hard time going through the employee pool, finding the right people for the right seats. So we did several shifting. I mean, I think we went through probably 5 or 6 employees, and it was disheartening, to lose people. But again, I wanted people that wanted to be there, that liked their job,
Mhm.
and didn't just look at it as a job. So that
So,
was important for me to understand.
so as you grew the business, you obviously have this extreme growth. You have obviously the great successes coming along with it. What were some of the challenges that you were facing, and how did you face them?
I think it was uh, one of the biggest things that I had a problem with, and I think it was just being in my own head, was I a good enough leader?
Mm.
Did I do everything for the girls, for the team, to empower them? Did I do it right? So I think that that was a little bit of a challenge for me. And of course, I got some feedback from them. I also had hired a business coach at the same time to kind of help me hone in on those leadership skills.
Nice.
Sat in on some mastermind groups, just getting connections with other business owners that had led employees. So it was just really just a kind of a learning process, and make sure, did I do it correctly? And then making sure that the messaging, because I'm a very independent, strong-willed person,
Mhm.
was my messaging coming across not at a tone? And I think that there was some times where I might have rubbed them the wrong way, but I went back and I said, hey, maybe I didn't say that the right way. So I'm, again, a very people person, and I worry, did my messaging, and that was just part of the learning process, was becoming a leader and making sure that through my leadership skills, was I empowering them the right way?
Were there any low points as you were going through this
Hmm,
growth where,
hmm.
you're changing, you're evolving yourself, even as a person, as a professional, but even personally. So were there low points that kind of came to the forefront that you realized I need to kind of address this thing that's scary and ugly and push through it? What was that like?
I think I was the only one doing tax preparation in the business, so that
Mm,
was another part of my journey, was to try to find another tax preparer to kind of help move that forward. Um, and I think the timing, it didn't work. I had a couple people, and it just, again, not finding that right person in the right seat, and eventually the stress of the growth and me doing, all the leadership and all of these skills to get the business where it needed to be. My body gave out on me.
mm,
Stress really just took a toll.
yeah.
And it's, people sometimes feel like we got to keep going, got to keep going, got to keep going, but you got to listen to your body. And I knew probably about 3 or 4 months before I was flat on my back for 6 weeks that something was happening inside of me. And I could feel that I was kind of just wearing myself down. Um, so while I was flat on my back, right before I actually went out, one of our employees decided she didn't want to work there anymore. So we were kind of in the interviewing process. My office manager took over the interviewing process, and we hired 2 employees or staff members while I was out in that 6 weeks. And then my office manager decided she wanted to go move. So it was just me on stress and again trying to take care of myself, but that business just kept eating at me. It just kept like, okay, you got to get up. Maybe you're not ready, but the office manager is quitting. You got to get back to work. Probably went in a little too soon, but again, as business owners, we do what we have to.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days later, another one of my employees turned in notice, and it was just like, how much more could I take? And I think shortly after that, I had kind of in early 2022, when that all happened, I had kind of started reaching out to other business owners, other accounting firms to see, are you interested in buying a business?
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back from that health issue, I just decided, okay, I'm selling this. I hated the job. I hated the business. I hated what it did to me. And I let it, I mean, that growth, that massive amount of growth, I let it happen.
Yeah.
And I can't blame anyone else but myself. But at that point, so then when I got back in August, I let go of all the tax clients because I knew that personally for me, I couldn't go through another tax season because I'd end up right back where I was.
Yeah.
So I had to pick what was best for the business, what was best for the staff, the team, because we've been going through this turmoil. And I think a lot of it had to do with, again, all of my stress adding to them. So there was just a lot of things that happened, and I needed to get the business back to a solid foundation and get a good solid team.
I really appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable as you have, simply because I think a lot of my listeners can identify. I feel that as entrepreneurs, especially as I've worked with clients, I've seen where once you pull back the facade of the success that they appear to put out publicly, you get into the behind the scenes and you start to realize there are individuals that are struggling, whether it be emotionally, there's insecurities, there's spiritual challenges that I've seen individuals face, physical ones, especially as they start to manifest a lot of these stresses physically. And as you were describing that health issue that put you down for as many weeks as it did, there are people that become debilitated simply because they're out of control. They feel as if they're not doing their best for their employees and their clients, and it just starts to implode around them. But you clearly got the bootstraps on. That's an analogy that some people might be familiar with. You
Yep.
pulled up those boots and you went to work and you dealt with the situation with your office manager leaving. You had that resignation that soon followed, and you kept going. And that's one of the tenacities of business owners that I find so resilient, is at the end of the day, they will follow through so often and take care of what needs to be done. And that's one of the things that defines the difference between successful individuals and those who end up struggling and perhaps even quitting. So kudos to you. But
Thank
you
you.
did get to the point where you got rid of the tax side of the business. So you had to make some big decisions, and that obviously meant you had to step away from that. But you also talked about selling the business. Before we go there, I do want to tap into the business coach. When did the business coach come into all of this? When did you realize you needed that outside experience and help? And what was that coaching experience like for you? What did you gain from it?
I originally met the business coach through a local chamber workshop. So again, I was going through the workshops trying to learn these things, and he was the leader of the workshop. Him and another business professional, and
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot from that. So I think he probably came in somewhere around late 2020 and really helped with that second employee that came in 2020. And then we just had, again, a whirlwind of employees in 2021. And he helped kind of just, again, hone in on that, making sure that the things we were doing was, we did a lot of group coaching, training together. We did a lot of cross training with the employees so that if an employee was out, we were able to know that the other person could pick up. Part of that process of growing the business as much as I did was putting in systems and processes. We found a CRM service, so we made sure that we had all the clients. We knew that all of the tasks, we had definitely put in checklist and notes and everything. So again, if one employee was out, the other one could step in. And we just took that time to make sure that we gave all the tools to the employees. He helped me identify what some of those things were, and really helped me to put those systems and processes in place, so that when I did end up selling, the girls were managing all the clients. I was not, I mean, I was managing them, but I wasn't managing clients when I sold it. And that's important for business owners to know, is that you have to work on it, not in it anymore. You can't sell a job.
Oh, well said. Yeah, one of the things that I think you start to realize as you work with these types of transactions is anytime the business owner is involved in the day-to-day operations of the business, it devalues the organization. You have to have key employees, key individuals, standard operating procedures. Really, when I look at a bookkeeping business, there's three things that I see that determine the valuation of the business. And I've had many people that are brokers and so forth explain the same. It is the client list, and we can go through and establish that value. It is obviously your standard operating procedures, the systems, the processes you have in place to ensure the quality of the work and so forth. And then your individual employees, the loyalty, how long they've been around, are they individuals that will stay after the transition? And so if you can actually package a business that addresses those three areas, it mitigates a lot of the risks associated with the
Correct.
transition. And so that's what we're trying to at least hone in on, is developing those three things. So you obviously have spoken of coming to that decision to sell your business. So let's talk about that for a minute. You've got this thriving organization. It has its challenges, but nonetheless, that's business. Why did you decide to want to sell it? And at the same time, how did that process work? How did you come up with the asking price, and where
Yeah.
did you start by putting it on the market? So let's kind of go down that path.
Again, I think because of what I had learned through the growth and just what it emotionally and physically had put on me, like I said earlier, I sold it sooner than I originally anticipated.
Mhm.
I expected to stay in this industry, for quite some years. But I also had the opportunity to start doing some contract work as a fractional CFO. And I found that this is one of the issues I discovered in my business after I became Profit First certified. My clients had a hard time seeing me anything other than their bookkeeper. So we push, hey, you got to be advisory services, advisory services. It's a lot harder said than done. I mean, it's easier said than done from that perspective, because I found that when I approached my clients with new offerings, they didn't see me as anything like, you're doing great on our bookkeeping, but they just didn't see me as anything more than that. And I think
Mhm.
that got very frustrating for me. Again, I wasn't a salesperson, I was a people person, but I just couldn't quite get my clients to see that every time I educated myself or I grew new services to help them, they couldn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
So that was hard for me. So I got that picture of, okay, I can go do fractional CFO services elsewhere. So it just made sense. It was a different way for me to help clients. And like I said, I'd gotten to this point, I did it for so long. I didn't like the business. I didn't like what it had become, but I knew I had a good business, but I just didn't appreciate it anymore. It just
Wow.
wasn't my passion. It wasn't my love anymore. So that's why I chose to do it. Early on, I got a couple people that were interested. Of course, put all of my Google Sheets with my financial, my 3 years of financials. I put all of that together, put my asset list together, put my lost client list, what my reoccurring revenue was, put all of this stuff in a Google Sheet so that if I had a buyer that was interested, I could share that with them. And then I went through the due diligence checklist. I did hire I interviewed a business broker. We just didn't connect correctly. I had another business broker run some evaluation numbers.
Mhm.
I was pretty close, and I ended up actually discounting it when I did sell it, because I wanted, usually you've got some financing options and things like that. I wanted to walk away, so I did discount it for full price, and gone through that, reached out to just different people and connected with another Profit First professional. And that's a great resource, finding other people that are very similar in your communities to put your business out there if you're interested in selling it,
Yeah.
connecting with other people that are providing the same services that you are doing. It makes for a really good transition. So I sold it myself with an attorney doing the the legal paperwork.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked.
So when you came and said, I'm going to sell the business, it appears that it was because you felt personally you wanted to go a different direction with
Mhm,
services and the business was holding you back. So I've got two questions here.
Yep.
One is when the transaction happened and you were now no longer running the business, that moment, and then 6 months later, some business owners struggle with that transition of I'm no longer an owner. I don't have a business. I'm no longer
Mhm,
running something successful. And after the high of selling the business, they go into a lull of purpose. What am I really doing? I achieved so much, but who am I now?
mhm.
Does that relate to you? Was that anything that you also experienced?
Absolutely. About maybe 6 weeks after I closed the business, I was at a conference and someone asked from the stage, "Who are you?" And that rattled me. I mean, it was a oh my God moment. And that's an identity crisis. And I think all business owners are going to go through that at some point. Some are going to be more intensive and some are going to be like a little bump in the road, but everybody's going to go through that because this person that you have been for so long is part of you, but it doesn't identify you anymore.
Hmm.
And I think you have to realize what is important. And I even at that point thought, okay, fractional CFO is where I'm going to be. But that day I had made a shift. I was like, fractional CFO is not enough for me. So that's when I got into the rabbit hole of exit strategy, exit planning, because I fell in love with the process.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that all the things I had done, and obviously things I've learned since then, this was where I was looking to get in clients. Because when you go through an exit plan and you really help them, you're you're getting into the trash under the car seats. You're really getting in deep with the clients.
Yeah.
And that was the work I was ultimately looking for, was how deep can I get in there to get them what they want out of their business.
I love this because this change is one of the things that I really get excited about. Just to transition here, when I work with a lot of my clients, they likewise go through a similar experience. And the way I try to help them transition through this is to see it as a parent. If you view your company as a child, someone that you're growing and nurturing, and
Mhm,
that you're
mhm,
with the employees and customers, you're basically creating this individual that I would refer to as a self-sustaining, living, breathing entity
mhm.
that now becomes so independent of you. It's as if they became a young adult and moved out of the house. They went
That's
out on their own. They got their own job. They
Yep.
start to do things differently than you would in certain situations.
Mhm.
But because you taught them correct principles, the business stays afloat and it still remains successful. And you can still say, I created that. That's something I was involved in. That's something that I did. But no longer can you take credit for it, because, like your young adult that goes off and gets their degree and starts
Yep.
their career and builds their own family, you're able to from afar say, yeah, I was part of that, but that's not your family. That's not
Mhm.
your career. That's not your education. So you have to step away and be able to say, I'm glad that I was involved with the beginnings of that. I incubated it. I started it. I
Mhm.
refined it. I nurtured it. But at some point, they are now self sustaining and they're independent of you. But now that doesn't mean that you're without identity. It doesn't mean that you've lost a sense of purpose. Now you
Right.
get to go find your next calling. And in your case, you got involved with exit planning. I know you've brought up the book Profit First. So just real quickly, let's talk about that. Profit First, great. Michael Michalowicz, or Mike Michalowicz, I guess, is the one who wrote that. And it's been something that's really resonated with business owners because it's
Mhm.
this paradigm shift of putting an emphasis on profit. It's gross profit minus profit equals expenses. And if you look at it that way, it changes really the purpose of business, and it makes what I refer to as profit being intentional and purposeful. So you're now seeing that as a core element of your CFO and advisory services, but you tie into it the exit component.
Mhm.
The exit success of a business, kind of like beginning with the end in mind. Can you give us an idea of what your exit business success looks like and what you feel is important for business owners to consider?
Yeah, before I get into that, great analogy on the parents and the child. I think that's
Hmm.
a great analogy to show them. We go parents empty nesters, and
It's
it's just
okay.
it's okay. It's part of the process. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, exit again, you always want to start with the end in mind. anytime you start a business, and I know most business owners don't do this,
Hmm.
that they start a business because they found something they were good at, found something they had some passion in, but they didn't start with, how am I eventually going to move away from this or move on from this? So I think really starting with that, honing in on what are the goals. One of the questions I ask is if your business could speak, what value does your business present to the public? So again, it's that in value that the business projects is very important to the business owner. So you identify, they may not want to talk about themselves, but they'll talk about their business.
Hmm.
So you just kind of reword it and find out what their values are, what their goals are. And exit planning can really hone in on those and find the right exit option for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that exiting is selling your business. There's other opportunities, you know, internal transfers, employees, there's a lot of other things that you can do. It doesn't mean just selling your business. And I think one of the other things that I've really kind of honed in on is an exit plan doesn't mean you're exiting tomorrow. It's a way to really hone in and get you laser focused on every decision making process that you do. So if you create an exit plan, share it with your team, share it with the staff, it gives you a blueprint to say, these are the things that are moving us forward to that exit. And if they're not, are they important?
Yeah.
So it's really about having a plan to keep the business laser focused so that when you're ready to exit, then you're at that stage where you can.
The analogy I give my business clients when I'm having this conversation is it's like a home. If your home is staged clean, if you regularly take care of it, it's not this big hustle at the end of the day to then get it ready to sell because it is clean, it is taken care of, the yard is maintained. And
Mhm.
I give this example of my wife when we were selling our car. We went right before we sold the car and detailed it.
A lot of
And
people
she,
do that.
yeah, and she said, "This is the stupidest thing in the world. Why are we detailing the car right before we turn it in? Why didn't we do this and enjoy it while we drove it? Why didn't we
Yep.
just have a clean car?" And ever since she brought that up, it just resonated with me to say, "Well, yeah, why wouldn't I just always do this?" And so we,
Hmm.
with our vehicles, keep them clean, with our home, keep it clean. And I take pride in the fact that, yeah, it's presentable. I want to be that individual that is ready for that opportunity that may present itself because you never know when it may come about. And it's not like I want to then change what I have because I'm ready to sell it. I want to invest in it, improve it, do the home modifications such as the new kitchen. I want to put the home modifications such as the deck, not
Hmm.
because I'm ready to sell it, because I'm ready to enjoy it. And then I can sell
Correct.
it in a few years. And that's the type of investments I think we need to see ourselves doing in our business. And it's the same that
Mhm.
we should be advising our clients to do. So when it comes to your transition from bookkeeper to CFO and advisor, you were speaking earlier of how your clients didn't see you as the advisor when being the bookkeeper, and it was hard for
Mhm.
you to add that service. What's now that thing that allows you to get clients where they see you as the CFO and advisor? What's changed that now you're able to have business owners recognize that you can help them here?
It's a different relationship. They came from somewhere different. So I currently don't service any of my bookkeeping clients in an advisory role. Um, it's just it's a new pool of people, and I think that that's and it's all the education and all the things I've done over the years has allowed me to get to this position, but not have that. I don't want to call it long-term relationships because I have some long-term relationships with the CFO clients that I currently have now. It's just about, I guess there's no preconceived idea of what I used to be.
Hmm.
It's this is who I am, this is the image I'm presenting, and this
Yep.
is what I'm selling to you.
That's right. Yeah, it's the old carpenter's son analogy. Isn't he the carpenter's son? It's hard to be the prophet in your own village. So
Yeah,
people just know you as a different type of person. They see you differently, and so if you can step away from that persona, then all of a sudden the people can recognize you for truly the talents and skills that you have, and you can get paid accordingly.
correct.
So I'm loving this conversation. So with regards to this transition, I'm trusting that your family has seen some great things. How do you feel being a business owner has benefited your life personally and with your family?
Um, it's funny, when I started my book business back in 2003, I was also planning a wedding. I mean, my husband's been on this journey the entire time. Um, so yeah, we got married in May of 2004. So I mean, it was just starting a business and planning a wedding. I don't do anything lightly, I guess people tell me. But my husband has always, we've been able to enjoy life. We've been able to have very nice homes just um, because I did make the money. I mean, it was just, there was always benefits there.
Mhm.
Um, I think the hardest thing through the whole process, and certainly when I was a solopreneur, was you were never off. Like, you took a vacation. I was in the back of my car in San Diego Zoo processing payroll. I mean, you're never off. So I think that was a struggle for us, is that you can't disconnect. He could disconnect because he was a W-2 job. He could
Mhm.
disconnect, but that was, I think, part of one of our hardest things through, that first phase, was that I was never off. But he always had my back. We just celebrated 20 years of marriage. So he's always,
Congratulations.
thank you. He's always been there. Also, too, because virtually, one of the other things that I was pretty proud of was I was able to move from Arizona to Washington, and I only lost 2 clients.
That's
So
impressive.
it just, yeah, that was one of the great things of the business, was that I was able to do that. And it, again, was just a little bump, and it wasn't anything, that was detrimental to the business.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's definitely some things that technology has afforded us in these last few
mhm.
years, and that ability to work remotely is definitely one of them that a lot of us have
Yes.
experienced. And your comments about working from the zoo, as my children have gotten older and we've reflected, their recollections of me working are different than what I recall. They remember me working in the hotel rooms, driving and telling them to keep it down because I was on a call. I
Hmm.
mean, I didn't remember as much as they do, but clearly I was working while we were vacationing, and I knew I was, but I didn't know that
Yeah,
they noticed it as much as they did. So yeah, I can
they,
resonate with that.
yeah, they absolutely do. And they have to understand, you're not taking away from them, but at the same time you are.
Yep.
I mean, and I think we have to pick our priorities. And as I got older and as I got into this business longer, I've been able to shift. That's another thing that was nice. I could shift for his days off,
Hmm.
like to put my schedule around it so that I could put priority back on our relationship and being able to spend that time. And I think that that's part of what business ownership is that you can have that flexibility, but you have to you have to do it. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yep. Yep. Well, Rebecca, this has been a wonderful conversation, and this is
Thank
something that
you.
I've really enjoyed. There's a few things that I'd like my listeners to be aware of. Rebecca has been so kind to actually put in the episode description a free business valuation offering. It's for any business that would like to actually find out more as to what their company is worth. So if you'd like to, you can go to the business or the episode description and see the information as it relates to this offering and take advantage of it. In fact, she'll actually do an actual valuation, which is something that is really quite interesting when they take and compare not just your business, but they look at
Mhm.
outside comps and so forth. So this is something that is definitely something I would encourage you to consider. And if you'd like to just have an initial valuation or learn more about these types of principles that we've discussed today, go to the episode description. You can find there actually where you can receive what's called a business score. The business score is intended to actually assess the strengths and opportunities within your organization. And with the business score, get a full understanding of where your opportunities lie and where some of the risks are that you can mitigate them. So definitely go to the episode description, take advantage of the free offerings that are available there, the business valuation and the business score. As for a summary, here are a few of my highlights from our conversation today. First of all, basically, Rebecca's recalling back in her youth, seeing that she had an interest in bookkeeping, not really finding herself pursuing it other than getting a job and then as an assistant, finding herself exposed to the accounting profession, but ultimately from that experience, finding the opportunity to really hone those skills that she could break it on her own and become an entrepreneur, starting her bookkeeping business. I love the part of the story where she spoke of as quickly as 11 months, she was able to get to that point where she was fully occupied and busy. That's phenomenal. But to then stay in that capacity for so many years before hiring the first employee was quite impressive. But then with that growth of growing the business, taking it all the way up to the mark of 400,000 in revenue quite quickly was something that really put some stresses on her, and those manifested even physically. And that was a realization, a wake up for her that something needed to change and give. And she made some adjustments, which I think we can all identify with and perhaps need to be a little bit more attentive to. Are we listening to our bodies? But then through that transition, she also came to understand, maybe there's something that I can be doing differently. And even though it was a little sooner than expected, she sold her business, and in that sale was able to transition into offering something that she's now passionate about as it relates to exit strategies. I agree with her with regards to individuals seeing you as to who you are. Oftentimes there's that initial impression of, well, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, you've been doing this. How do I see you as someone different? And sometimes it does necessitate this full change. And in doing so, she's actually now gone out there and offered CFO and advisory services. Some of the principles that she was alluding to come from the book Profit First from Mike Michalitz's works. And with regards to her exit planning, we spoke of beginning with the end in mind. So definitely some highlights of the conversation. But ultimately, I want to point out that she was able to address that from the very beginning, she had the support of her spouse. I think it's so critical that we recognize those individuals that are around us that can enable us to be successful, to have the confidence to go out there and tackle those hard, challenging times that we face. And in doing so, I think with her comments about family, we do set a good example as to work ethic. There is something that needs to be recognized as it relates to sacrifices made for success. They do happen. We do make them. But at the end of the day, I think they're for the betterment of us as individuals and our community. And I'm glad that she was able to kind of confide and share in those. So, Rebecca, thank you for all that. What closing thought might you have for our group?
I think find your passion, find your North Star. It's going to keep you going. And you just have to make sure that you have this, but also don't let it consume you. It has to be beneficial both for you, your staff, and your customers, your clients. It has to work as a whole. It can't weigh, it has to be balanced. It has to be a balanced thing. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to step back. It's okay to reevaluate and really, again, hone in on that North Star. That keeps you driven and keeps you motivated.
Wonderfully said. Thank you for that, Rebecca. For my listeners, I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. And with that, get the notifications of these episodes as they're released each and every week. It's here that you'll find those things that you need to be doing as you work on your business to become the premier accounting firm in your area. In addition to this, I also want to invite you to go to universalaccounting.com. It's there in the navigation that you'll find the episodes related to our podcast. The podcast highlights are there in the navigation where you can go and find playlists related to various topics that perhaps are essential to you right now in your current situation, ranging from mental health, tech stack, staff training, marketing, selling, pricing. Just find those podcast playlists that we've compiled from the experts as to what it is you can binge listen to and go deep into each of these topics. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon happens to be an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's the place you need to be to hear from the experts off the stage what it is that we can be doing right now today in our business to actually become the leaders and, more importantly, offer those quality accounting services to get paid what we're worth. It's also here that you visit with the peers, make connections, relationships, collaborations to actually assist you personally and professionally, as well as meet the team at Universal Accounting so that you can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. I would also encourage you that if you'd like to discuss these principles and others that we've had on the show, feel free to give us a phone call. You can contact us at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day. Rebecca, that was wonderful.
Thank you. That was
Very
awesome.
good. Yeah. So here's what I'm going to have you do right now in the chat. I've put that text. I'm going to have you record that promo piece.
Okay. So I remember you said this was, or this is, and then the blank.
Yep. That's your name.
Okay. This is Rebecca, and it was awesome to record with Roger. Okay. You want me to do that right now?
Right now.
Okay. This is Rebecca Howell. It was awesome to record with Roger on an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed growing a business, selling a business, leadership, teams, just really enjoying your practice and understanding what it does for you. I invite you to listen and join us. Thank you so much.